Okay, I wanted to record a short video about identity politics and why I see that as a huge problem in a modern society. So, let me just introduce some identity politics, how I understand the topics. It doesn't really matter what the topic means, that's just I would use it in a certain way, so just accept that. Okay, let's start with USA because there's a lot of Americans online. There's something called Black Lives Matter in USA. That's again identity politics because you say, okay, I'm black, and there's another group that discriminates against me or take resources away from me. So you can be black, you can be a woman, you can be whatever, but that's identity politics because you want the laws of the country to adapt to your goals and wants and needs. And your needs and wants are that you are black and you want more power or you want more resources. And your view of the world is that you have you are poor because someone has taken something away from you that you have earned. And sometimes the problem with the identity politics is also that it you will create people that go against you. So you will create neo-Nazism, more of that, or you will create some other groups that goes against you. So you will create a lot of fights and conflicts. Of course, Nazism is an old thing. So it's not just created because of Black Lives Matter, but you could see more people join this ideology if there's too many affirmative action laws, because they are actually racist laws. They discriminate based on race, and that's in principle racist. And another thing you also see a lot of in Western societies, and you're saying free societies actually, is feminism. It doesn't really go into Saudi Arabia or countries where women don't have all the rights men have, but feminism is a big thing in a lot of Western countries, and it's again the same thing. It can be often becomes an ideology where you feel that you are discriminated against, and where you feel that you deserve more than you have. So that's, of course, you always feel that in all these identity groups, no matter if you're a Nazi or a black or woman or whatever. If you belong to these kind of ideologies, you always feel like there's a group out there that are taking resources away from you. For a neo-Nazi, it will be the Jews, for example. So you feel like, okay, I see a lot of Jews in top positions. They have clearly taken my jobs away from me and my family, and if the Jews did not exist, then I would clearly be a CEO of a big company or something like that. And that can be the same with some kind of feminism, where you feel that, okay, if a man didn't have this extra power, then I could be, I'll probably be CEO right now or something like that. And it doesn't really matter if it's an ideology or if it's a race matter, or if you have been born in a certain country or whatever. It can always just be an identity. That's the main point of it. So, for example, if you're a Native American and you live in USA, you can say, okay, I would be much better off if these white people were not here, or if they were not stealing my job away from me. So you kind of have this suffering, or maybe even an imaginary suffering, and then you say that, okay, it's caused by this and this and this and that. So it can also leave you behind because you're not using yourself well enough, because you're kind of stuck in this thought pattern of someone taking something away from you. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that any of these groups are evil or bad in any ways. I mean, some of them are, but I'm just saying that it can be destructive, very, very, very destructive. And it can also be any other kind of group. It can, for example, be communism, but communism is also created on the basis of poor versus rich people. So that's what Karl Marx wrote. Poor people needed to fight against rich people and take away power from rich people. And then you can also, when rich people have a lot of power, you can take that power and then just divide it among the poor people. And then everyone will be well off and everyone will be super, super happy because there's a lot of wealth in the world. So it doesn't really work like this, because when you try to do it, usually the wealth just disappears, because if you take a big house and let a lot of poor people move into it, that's actually what happened in Soviet Union, then this big house would probably not be repaired upon, and you would just fall apart because there's no one to take care of it, and a lot of people living in it. And yes, I will return to communism later. No, maybe I'll go through it now actually, because that's a problem of identity politics. You give certain people some power to take away power from other kind of people. So, for example, you can be a neo-Nazi and you live in Germany, or then you're a Nazi, of course, in World War II or before that, in 1933, and you want the government to take away the rights from the Jew population and maybe some other kind of populations too, because you feel that they have stolen something from you, stolen some wealth from you, and you want their wealth. You see a lot of Jews be very, very successful, and you are very jealous, and you want what they have, and you feel that it belongs to you, and it belongs to your race, because you are the best race in the world. So you give your government this power, and they become very, very powerful, because now they have the power to take away rights from certain groups, right? That's what you wanted them to do, and they have done it, but they won't just give away their power after that. You have given them a lot of power, and they will use this power on other groups too. And if you one day say, hey, now I want to be in the government, or now I want to take away power from you because now I want some other groups to take power that's not as corrupt as you have become, then they can go into your house and then take away your power and take away your life, because you have given government the power to differentiate between groups, right? So that's why I think it's a bad idea to give them this power at all. It could be the same if you're religious and you hate gay people or just dislike gay people, I don't know. You have some reasons to not like them. You want to take away some rights from gay people. That's the same thing again, because you give the government power to take away rights from gay people. Who's to say you are not next? Of course you're next. You probably have some weird thought patterns in your brain or some weird sexual habits, whatever. You're not perfect, no one is. We're all weird in a certain way. So that's why I'm saying that this is a terrible, terrible idea to take rights away from people. And this is also what we see with religion in Saudi Arabia, when some rights are taken away from some groups. And you're happy because you're Muslim, but then your rights are also taken away from you. Of course they are, because the government wants to remain in power. And also what we, for example, see in Ireland, where a lot of religious people are elected. So they're taking away rights from women, and they're making abortion something that's harder to do and get. That's taking away a right there. That's also what happens with Poland and maybe other countries. In South America, Catholicism is also pretty big, so it can be hard to get an abortion there. But it can continue from that point. because now you have told your government that it's okay to discriminate people. It's okay to say that one group of people is less than another group of people. Okay, it can start small. It can start in like gay marriage or something like that, or abortion rights, or it can start in these small kind of things, but it can expand from there. I'm not saying that it always will expand from there, but I think that the more rights you have, the more safe you are in the country you're living in. But you can also see that this is what happens, for example, with Swedish people in Finland. Some Swedish people, not all, but they want their own enclaves, they want their own cities, they want to speak Swedish. So again, you're kind of creating an in-group and an out-group. This is also what happens in Canada with French-speaking population. A lot of them want to only speak French in their cities. So there's a lot of people in Canada who only speak French. The road signs have to be French and all the documents have to be in French, because they're kind of creating this in-group, and they also want more wealth than the English-speaking population. So that's just something that happens naturally in this way. Also, what we see in Israel and Palestine, I don't know, but whatever. They have also created in-groups and out-groups, and again, they're also fighting for power. And maybe if you live in Palestine, you will think, okay, maybe I'm poor because the Israelis took away my power. In reality, your race or your group or city were never rich, but now you have someone to blame for it. Like with Native Americans, they were not rich 1,000 years ago. They didn't even have houses, they didn't have running water, they didn't have anything of this sort. That's the same with Greenland, where Denmark took over Greenland. It kind of took over half-heartedly, so not really, but in some way. And you see a lot of people on Greenland thinking that they are unique people and they are unique population, and they feel that Denmark is taking away resources from them. But that's of course not true, because a third of their income comes directly from Denmark. They don't even produce enough resources to sustain themselves. So it's identity politics, but it's kind of fake. It's something they have created in their own mind. And this is the end result, fascism. This is what you can end up with. I'm not saying that the abortion example was the best example, because you can stop at that, right? You can stop at some of these kind of small laws, but if you give the government too much power, no matter if it's a communist government or a fascist government, you will end up the same place. You have a government really, really powerful, and instead of only attacking the group that the population wants, that Muslims, Christians or whatever, they will start to attack groups that want to take power away from them. So be careful what you wish for. Very, very careful. And also know that you are creating conflict and dividing groups. Because when you're creating an in-group, you're also creating an out-group. Doesn't matter what race you are. That's why we are becoming more and more mixed as races. So for example, if you live in Greenland, maybe your mother is from Denmark and your father is from Greenland. So that's again a problem, because now who can you blame for your sufferings? And what race and group do you belong to? You just belong to yourself. That's at the end, you belong to yourself, right? So that was just my thoughts on this subject.